screen capture. All right, so we're capturing the screen here for what I'm going to be presenting. So hopefully there'll be a video posting of this that you'll be able to review at your leisure and stuff like that. So primarily, I just want to take and show the current status of AVD, the Advanced Visual Developer Project for OS4. For any of you that are not familiar with this software, the whole point is to try to take and make a comprehensive, modern development environment for Amiga OS4 that greatly accelerates the production of actual Amiga OS applications. With any luck, there'll be some projects that you'll be able to do with very little code, maybe 10% actual code, and the rest of it will be written for you. The Advanced Visual Developer, as you can see from this little window here, and my launch, got a little dock here, is made up of a few base components. The one that's labeled Advanced Visual Developer is kind of the core application. It is primarily the background piece that joins the rest of them together. The other major components on here are the AVD text editor, which is the one I've been working a lot on most recently. The Sdk Browser, which has been, a version of that has been out there for like 14 years or longer. And the AVD Gui Builder, of course. And I'm also doing integration with integration with DB101 for actual debugging, because it's pretty much the best thing we've got right now on the platform. So I'm going to start out by demonstrating some of the features of the text editor. Now, most of the components for AVD actually have two different operational modes. One I refer to as standalone, and the other one is as a component of AVD itself. So to put it into standalone mode here, I can just change a tool type. And there's one here, so it's standalone equals yes. And I also have a default projects location on here. So with that set to yes, I'll launch the software. Okay, there we go. And so first, I'm going to. The idea with standalone mode is that it's just a text editor. It does have a programming focus, but it's not specifically connected to the other components of AVD. So if you just want to use this as a general purpose text editor, which it will be available as a separate component for sale as well. So in standalone mode, we just have the menus that are related to this project itself. And on here, we right now currently only have the live file browser and a list of the open files. So it opened it up into the AVD projects folder that was set on the icon. So of course you can set it to open up to whatever browser path you want. One of the main things I've been working on with this lately is to incorporate full file management integration into it, allowing you to take and manage multiple files at the same time, and be able to track them and save them. It doesn't matter. There's many different ways to load files into the editor for use. Right here we're looking at the file browser, so of course we can just go right into a project and go into the source here, and I can just load up any one of the files. And you can see that we have context sensitive highlighting on here, which is very nice to have. And there's a lot of features. So the core editing piece here is based off the same rich editor class that was licensed from Simon and Peter. In fact, I may as well show that about the text editor right there, rich editor gadget. Peter Gordon and Simon Archer. Peter was the original author of that core editor, and Simon greatly extended it, and they allowed me to take and use it as a base, which has greatly accelerated putting the text editor together. However, I am steadily replacing it because there's a lot of features and capabilities that I'm going to be doing in here that it won't, I can't actually implement the features I need without being able to completely, work with the core. And I don't have the source code for it. I'm just working with it as a class. So, but there are a lot of things that it does do already. So first I'll take a look at opening files here. So here I can just select, whatever files, just double click on them from whatever you want. Here you can also open files, and you can open multiple files at the same time. And this, so here's the selector for being able to switch to different files. So this is one way that you do it. There's main. It will remember the different states. So let's say if we collapse this section here and we actually leave it here, and then we go back over to close. This is where we were in close. Go back to main. There is this section was collapsed. It just is still collapsed and the whole thing. So, and it remembers it. Now you can also you have this pull down here to select the different files. You have also this one here that shows you the open files as well. I do have an untitled in here that is an automatic, which is not. It does show up in here, but it's kind of a residual. It was from the first actual load of it with a blank on there, and it's so. This version is pretty far advanced, but it is still a beta. I'll be releasing this to the beta testers, which includes all of the existing AVD owners. And if you are an AVD owner, speaking of that, please send me an email. If you have not seen any communications from me, it would probably means that I have an old email address from you, because some of the supporters of this project have put in for it many years ago, and I had to walk away into a different programming life for about 5 years off of this project and then come back. So it's been a long time. I still have the records, but I'm still trying to find a few people that I don't have addresses for, so please contact me. Okay, so multiple file management, of course. The whole idea is that you can work with as many different files as you want, and if you make modifications to the files, let's see, I'll bring up the open files here, the list. I needed to refresh that list. Let's open up. There we go. You can see that there's a mark on there to say that particular file that you have open for main.c, that's been modified. It's supposed to return it to the state where you can undo it and everything like that, but it's still very early days with this. I just got the multi-file management stuff in and working, basically a few hours before I packed everything up and drove 14 and a half hours to get here. So so there's still several different connections and stuff on there, but the functionality is pretty much intact. So it really is getting to the point where it is a usable editor. Now I've added some features to the editor itself. Let me drop that panel out of the way. I've been able to fix certain things, like there's that show up in the actual rich editor class, which are bugs that haven't been fixed. If you have a blank document and you start typing the first line, you hit return, it loops back to the beginning of the line. It adds a second line, it loops back to the first one, it doesn't bring you down on there. I've been able to fix that because I've actually wrapped the rich editor class with my own private Boopsy class, so that's that gave me the ability to fix a lot of things. that I had problems with that it would intercept. So like the mouse wheel scrolling here, this is uses my own mouse wheel acceleration routines. So let's see. Other ways to take and load into the editor, of course, are just to do some drag and drop. So if we open up one of the projects, here's a file here, so I can just drag that file and drop it in there, and it'll load it automatically. Or I could drag a whole set of files and drop it in there. Plus, I've created some file associations. Let me show that one as no, not view as icon. That's a mess. Where the project files go? C source. PS4. No. I was just looking at them. Anyway, bear with me a minute here. Okay, and the icons. It should show me in the icons. So basically, although I seem to have lost the one I wanted to show, it's in projects. Oh, I know what I did. It doesn't have an icon. This is a default one. Okay. That's what I was trying to show in the first place, is that this here is a default icon that I installed into the system for the C file, and which defaults to taking and loading in the text editor. So if I copy this guy into RAM, and then I'll rename it so that it has just a different name to it or something like that, and then I can double click it, and now it brings open the editor and it switches to it on here. So now let me take a look at one of the features that interconnects with it. Okay. Right. So some of the features that I've also added to the basic editing do with the find. So you can highlight in a line, and if I do a Shift Alt, I can just shift the whole line, up and down within the code. That's a feature exclusive to this. I could take some. What we got for a text example here? Here we go. You can also do take a block of code. You do the same Shift and Alt and cursor left and right, and you can nudge a piece of text, throughout the line. Just nice little things like that. Taking and doing a block. Let's see here. Yeah, see, I did the comment block. Let me drop take the tab size to 2, and then remove the tabs. Okay, there we go. Highlighting on a block. That's commented out. Let's see if it does this one correctly. And seeing it added comment lines to it. So add a comment to individual line. Take the comment back off again. Block a word on there, and then just hit a matching character like quotes, and it will add the quotes to it. Now this is a little bug actually from the current one. What it is supposed to do, and what it will do, is keep the highlight on it, so that when you have the word highlighted, and then you decide to put it into curly braces or square brackets, any matching set will work, parentheses. It will keep the highlight on the one so that you can also hit the same key again, matching set, and it'll remove it. So it is on this. I don't know why it's dropping the selection. It's not supposed to do that. So that's something I have to look into. I added the other bracket to it. But anyway, that's a feature that can be very handy as well, to just be able to like quote a text or put parentheses around it, something like that. Otherwise, there's a lot of other basic stuff. Okay, so you can change the font sizes on both the lists and the text area. Of course, you can set the tab sizes, set tabs to spaces, and show the tabs, show the end of line markers. All of the kind of typical stuff you would expect is in there. Cut, copy, paste, undo, redo. The find system here, like if I highlight on a word and I hit my hotkey, Control F, it does the find. Now I can just hit return and keep going down to find the next one. I can hit Shift Return and go up with it. I can also go Alt Return and it finds the first instance. And down here in the status, there's actually got a little bit of a history there for it, so you can hover over it, and the tooltip shows you the last set of actions or messages that have been showing up on here. So you can see as I told it to search from the beginning, it's saying that first instance of it was found at that location, and also with Control Return, it starts at the end. So now it's saying last instance is found there. So forward or back. So that's I find that to be the most convenient way to do it, but it's not the only way to progress with the find. This version also has the hotkeys, so you can use the actual buttons here, of course, to move forward and back with the find and replace. But it also has the hotkeys for Amiga, greater than and less than symbols, actually the comma and the period, to move forward. And it's been fixed so that if you're active in the find or replace on there and you hit these other hotkeys, so if I'm active on the layout and I'm going to return on here, going up and down, I can also then re-enter editing without much of a problem, because if I just hit a cursor key or another movement key, it jumps right back into the editing and out of the focus of find. So earlier versions had more problems with that, and it does process more hotkeys through the string as well. So I can take and go. Oh, I have another layout one here. Should be able to. Yep. See, I was able to take and use the forward search for it on there. So okay. All right. So that's really kind of it. I mean, it's kind of the current state of the editor. It's getting better all the time. Other things that you're not seeing on here, this should actually be activated. This little X button here is for closing the file that you're currently looking at. It is supposed to be enabled, but it's not at the moment, and I don't know why. This pull down here is going to encompass the quick access points into the software that you're looking at. So with C, it will find all of the function entry points and other key points of interest. One of the ones that I've never seen before that I want to put in here is to automatically find all of the case statements in a big switch. Sometimes you got a file with a great big switch case statement, and just scrolling down and down and down all the time to find it, or use the find to take and get to it, is very inconvenient to do all the time. And it would be, it's a lot nicer to be able to have a list here. So this pull down is going to actually have multiple different quick selections for it. Your own bookmarks that on there, and when being able to jump to different places in your code, and also when you set breakpoints for the debugging, which you'll be able to take and actually just click over on the sidebar here to set a breakpoint, remove a breakpoint, and then you'll be able to just jump to the different breakpoints. And there'll be a hotkey associated to this as well, so you can just quickly jump through, rotate through the list of them, and create your own. But there's going to be a lot of dynamic parsing on here, as well as auto suggestions. So it's helping you auto complete your code. So you define a structure, and then you take and start to use the structure, and this so my struct, and then you go my struct dot like you normally would, and right from that point it's going to say which one of the actual fields within that structure do you want. So and then you can just select it and hit return, or just keep going, or just type as much as you want. So if you've ever used any of the more modern IDEs and editors, there's a lot of features that we lack on Amiga OS right now that we really need to do, and there's other features that I think that we need that I haven't seen yet, so I want to put those into. So the actual one of the big things beyond context-sensitive highlighting on here is going to be full source code navigation. So that when you actually, it's like if you're on a variable, you're on a function with your cursor, and you hit the hotkey or function key or whatever, and it'll trace you back to where that is. So you're on a function call, you go, what is that defined as? And boom, it's going to load the file that it's referenced to. And in order to accomplish that, it has to parse the live code that you're working on and follow you pretty much as you write it. So when you create a variable within a scope, and then you want to use it again, it's automatically going to be added to the suggested list, so that because it knows that variable is within that context, and will likely be one of the ones that you're looking for. It's also going to know, connects to the whole Sdk Browser as well, and it will be able to suggest all of the operating system ones. So if you start making operating system calls, like, what do we have in here? Actually, let's go to we have Create GUI. Yeah, Create GUI's got all kinds of stuff, right? Under the window handle. Here's one right here, right? So all you have to do is take and type, start typing Zach, and it's going to suggest, do you want Zach, and then hit your dot here. That'll convert it to an arrow, take you to right there, and then you start typing the first couple characters, and it's going to know every single one of the operating system functions under that interface, and be able to take you to that. So, okay, so this is pretty much standalone mode, where all of there's nothing connected here for the editing. Oh, I wanted to show you some of the other convenient ones that are still available in both modes. I got really tired of taking and resizing the window and keep moving it around for being able to see different things. So I tied the currently set to control hotkey to the numeric keypad, so that you can instantly move and position your window any way you want. So this is full window. If I want it to be left half of the screen, right half of the screen, top of the screen, bottom of the screen, corner, or 3/4 center, or full, and then of course it also has iconify, which I can just bring that back again. And that's all done following the numeric keypad. So Control 7, 8, 9, just laid out exactly the way the numeric keypad is. And it's turned out to be extremely convenient to be able to do that. So that's a feature that is integrated into AVD as well. It's already into the Sdk Browser and stuff, which I'll show next. So the connectivity of it. So here I'll just take this back to here. And these positions, as well as many other settings, are all able to be set with taking and just doing a save settings, and it will save it out as the into the standard preferences XML file of all of the position information where you were, and eventually it will also, on a per project basis, which I'll go into some more, it will remember all the files you had open, when you left the project. So when last time you were in the project, you opened everything up, and you had, were different areas of the text. You close all of that down for the day. You open it back up again. It's going to reopen all of the stuff and remember exactly where you are. And all of that will just be saved in, simple open XML type format and in the preferences on a per project basis. And the project file is really the kind of the core of the whole thing. So I will quit the editor. I do have a tracker thing on here. That's a known issue. Resource that it didn't want to let go. And now I'll go back in here and I'll change the two tool types. Actually, well, it's doing the public screen. Okay, so I will just change this so that it is standalone equals no. And you can do different instances on there. The whole saving it, when you save the config, it'll save those variables as well. And so what you have saved in the configuration file, it'll pick that up first. But then if you change it in the icon, that's going to override what you want for that icon. And also the same exact properties, like the standalone equals yes or no, can be put right onto the command line, and run it that way, because that's yet another way to take and load in files into the editor. By the way, you can run it on the command line, so you can script things in there. There's also going to be a full AREX interface. So right now there's I think 9 different ways to load in files into the text editor. So it's really trying to make it as flexible as possible, so it follows the way you want to work and not the way I think you want to work. So running the text editor again, this time it's now connected to the rest of AVD. And the first thing you can see that indicates that is that the menus have changed. These 3 new menus for general control for AVD, project management, and building have been added before the rest of the text editor one. And this text editor menu here was called Project in following with the Amiga standards guide in standalone mode. But as a component mode, it becomes text editor. We'll see the same thing with Sdk Browser, et cetera, Gui Builder, so that you know that these menus from here on out are all exactly the same, related to the text editor, and not not part of the core. So, and the other thing you would notice right off the bat is that there's now a projects listing, and this list here is found by scanning the projects file. So you gave it AVD :projects, for example. That's the default, and it will scan through that and find all of the XML files, and then identify that file as being an actual AVD project file, and then it adds it to the list. This immediately at this level, it gives you a quick indexing into the actual project. So I can go right into the AVD template, and just like just the file browser before, I'd have to go in by steps. This is providing me with a quick link into it. But that's just the beginning of it, because you'll also be able to launch the project you're looking at into its graphical design part. In other words, launching it into the Gui Builder, or as into the text editor, or whatever you need. So, taking a look here, let's go into again. We'll look at something like create GUI, and I'll drop this panel out of the way. And here I can see my close gadget has come back. And I should have menus. Yeah, so close all have been activated here. Reload file has been activated. So that's the way it should behave. So there's a few connections and bugs to work out. But let's say we're looking at a function. Here we go, intuition set at ours. And you want to know more about it. So I can just select that, and I can go up here, or also I can hit F5, that's the hotkey for it, and I can say look up in Sdk Browser. And with any luck, it's not going to want to launch. All right. Let me try that. Okay, close on. Okay, now I've run into an issue. That's still there. Well, let's move this to screen. All right, take that to there we go. That seems to be working. Nope, something has gone wrong. Okay, let me try to. Seems I have run into a bug. Let me see if we can kill the
demo gods are against us.
Well, that's what happens when you're, trying to demonstrate off of alpha. And it's not gonna. I got to figure out why it is that happens, because I'm not sure it's related to my software. Actually, I think it's a weird operating system thing. But I'll get back. $32 minutes. Okay. Why is it doing that? Oh, it must have been for the TV. Yeah. Okay. All right. Oh, yes, of course I moved that. Yeah, ignore it. I don't like the way that does that. The dock, you move files out of the way and the dock does not like you. Okay, so run the text editor again. We're in project mode. And I'll go into the Xena Manager because I know there's source code. Source, Amiga S4 source, functions, bring up create GUI, go down to function, where is it? Set at ours. Yeah, that's what it's supposed to do. Except that the Sdk browser, so this is a newer version of the Sdk browser that's out there publicly. It has some new feature support, but it's not anywhere near complete. It's a whole new menuing system and internal messaging system, as well as support for the screens, the operating system's screen management. I've pretty much removed taking and having AVD manage its own custom screen, and instead of that, support the operating system screens preferences, and just so that way you can just say the public screen I want is AVD underscore screen, and then in the preferences, screen preferences, you can set up what that screen is. And that opens a lot of things up. I think it opens a lot of stuff up for the user, because you can, under that screen preferences, you can create an entire different GUI set, of completely theme that public screen different from the workbench or whatever you want to take and do. And I can't, it's a lot of work for me to create a custom screen and then allow all of that GUI preference changing, which is really why applications creating custom screens is discouraged at this point. To go, going forward, should create just referencing a public screen and let the user have a complete control over setting up what that public screen is. And it works just as well, even better actually, because the preferences allow the operating system will open the screen and close the screen automatically for you whenever you move things around. Makes it very easy to move stuff around. So, and it's all connected right here on, jump to screen, and it just shows whatever public screen I have available. I'm on the AVD screen right now, so I can go back to the workbench. But, so let me set this up quick. I do have some things in the Sdk Browser, so I do have the being able to quickly position it there. I can go back to this one, I can go back over here. I'll drop the panel out of the way so you can see that. And okay, so the only thing it didn't do here is it didn't fully pass the lookup. It got it to launch, but it's supposed to go to it directly, so let's just try it now that it's running. There we go. That's what it's really supposed to do. So what it's done is you said you're looking at setitars in the editor, and you can take and just, it'll take you right to setitars on here. I have incorporated hiding the panel now on the Sdk Browser. Also, I will be taking and instead of using the plain text edit gadget here for the display on the Sdk Browser, I'm going to be incorporating the use of the rich editor one as well, so that for anything you're looking at with the Sdk Browser, source code, whatever, it's going to have that context sensitive highlighting. It's going to have an improved find capability. So very, kind of very similar to the, got find and replace over here, because this is the editor. The Sdk Browser is just for viewing files, so it will have all of the advanced find features, including the stuff it already has of being able to grep search through different paths and everything for you to find things. But it'll also, it will have the same hotkey system, so that it's very consistent when you're jumping back and forth between it. You don't have to, remember this is the way I do a search on this one. It's different from the editor. The editor is the newest code, newest style stuff, and the Sdk Browser is picking up that code. The Sdk Browser is really the oldest code, but it is I am migrating it to it. So as you can see, it did automatically jump to that definition of that function. I can also use this to on file browser. I can take and go just about anywhere I want. So let's I want to look at an example. Here's a Boopsy class example, and I'm looking at it over here, and this is a piece of code I either want to copy something out of, or just have a closer look at it on there. And so I can just literally just pop it right into the editor. So I'm looking at this one, and I can do an Amiga E, and it'll load it right up into the editor for you automatically. So there's your Boopsy one. So as you can see, there's a good example of. See, that's an issue. I don't have it. I haven't taught it that the panel is hidden. So if I automatically scroll over there, it tries to redraw it. That's one of the reasons why that Sdk Browser isn't being distributed to the beta testers yet, because it has a few things I want to clean up. But you can clearly see the difference here in having the context sensitive highlighting and not having it. This is a slightly larger font. You could make this identical fonts, but it's still this pops so much more. And let's see how to set the tabs. Make that correct. It's a little off yet. Other features that are planned for the text editor include being able to take and clean up the code. Now, one feature that I've seen is very nice is you will be able to, in a preferences, be able to edit a sample of what common C source looks like. So when you say, okay, well, this is a for loop, it had, I started with a bracket here, I indent this much, and that gives it a guide to follow. So then you'll be able to just select a whole block on here and say, clean it up, and it'll follow your style of how you wanted it. It'll just transform it into that. And I also have other advanced ideas with the editor in cleaning up the code. So when you're looking at somebody else's code, that's one big file. This thing's going to help you a lot because it'll scan through it immediately. You'll be able to do a pull down and find the function entry points automatically. But eventually you will be able to select the whole thing and say reformat it, and it can just restructure the entire source code for you. You can take all the functions and put them, indent them properly and give them proper spacing, rearrange them so that they're all alphabetical, in like an alphabetical order in the same file, even split them all into separate files. So you could take a big, single file project that you want to work on and say, yeah, split this into one function per file, and it'll just create the whole different set. So lots and lots of features still planned for the text editor to get it up to a fully modern capability. Okay, I think that's just about it for, I could go through and show you a lot of the different keyboard controls and stuff, features that are in there as far as navigation and find and replace, but a lot of it's pretty basic. I think you get the idea. So let's take a look at the, let's see what I can find for the graphical interface part of it. For that, let's see, the Gui Builder. Now, the Gui Builder does not have the same support yet for the other screens. It was still working on the custom screen stuff. So, but I can move the pieces that I want back over to the workbench, of course. I can put that down in the corner over here, or just hide it out of the way for me. All right. So the GUI Builder. This is an earlier version. This one is using the other icons, unlike the text editor. Right here. Put that on here. This icon set for the toolbar here. This is replaceable. These are just being loaded externally. I will put the menu controls in there to be able to switch between different sets. So it'll have the AISS set, so if you prefer to use those. And it'll have these icons included as well in at least 4 different sizes. This is like I think 548. So from a beta testing standpoint, if you went into the AVD installation, you went into the icons, you could just rename that folder out of the way, put your own images in there under the same names, and it'll completely pick those up as replacements. So that's left open on there. But in this example, older version of the GUI Builder, it has the AIS set on here. So, okay. So the GUI Builder. The GUI Builder is hopefully allow you to create interfaces very, very quickly, so you can just get right to it. As you can see, I just launched it, and if I wanted to create an interface, I could start with I could just grab a button, and it will automatically give you a window with a root layout, and then the button on there. And if I want to add more of them, I can just add more. And I can, switch this between horizontal and vertical very easily, and just rearrange this into different groups. So if I wanted to create, let's see, chooser gadget, drop downs, add drop down items, and you can edit the names in here. Item 1. Okay. And there you see it, so it's really designed to be a real-time one. So if I create a horizontal group, then I can just there we go. I can move this group here. I can put the buttons into the group, and then move the whole group around. So it's very easy to create the interface. So let's take a look at something. Yeah, I'm going to delete that window, and I'll close that project one. And let's put that panel over here. Let's see if I can load one I already had an interface for. Projects. Xena Manager. Where did you go? Right. Different ones I was experimenting with. Okay. And let's see if this is associated to the right thing. Yeah. Yeah, so I can load in a project for this. I can just drop right onto the GUI Builder, and there's an earlier version of an interface I had already done. And if I drop a different one on there, or load up a different one, let's see, that's a rebuild of it. And you can see when I just dropped another project in there, and it just automatically added it as another window. These are identical, of course. So let me see if I can load a different one. AVD template. Which one does this have? Okay, that just has that base one. Delete the window. Okay. Okay, so once you've laid out your interface on here, you have two different outputs of it. So you can take and save it. Let me get rid of a lot of this crap here. Try again. Oh. Delete the window, close the project. Okay. Let's just design something really quick. I want a vertical layout box, and let's see, maybe a get file thing on top of it, and then underneath that, give me a slider, and underneath that another horizontal group with a button and space, another button, and then I want to lock. I can fix this to that horizontal, or tighten it up in the group, or bring the whole thing to smallest possible size. What's not in here at this level is direct manipulation of all the properties. So there's certain things that you can do very quickly with the layout. So if I wanted to create a layout that kept this small, I can add a space here underneath the that one. I'll put it on the outside. So that's in the outside group there, and then I can, I can squeeze that down to that. I'll bring this down, whatever I want. So let's just put in a string gadget, and I'll take out the space. Oh, that's not the space I wanted to do. Okay, well that's a good example. I removed the space object on here, and now it doesn't delete the object, it puts it back into the clipboard, and I can take and just insert it back. So if that's my target on there, I could just insert the space back into there, and then of course I can move it back where I wanted it, like that. Also, which is new on here, is modules. Modules are pre-designed layouts. So if you have an actual interface already built and you want to save it as an example, you can just save it as a module, and it'll go into the modules directory. And you can load up a complete set. So if I wanted to do this like 64 buttons, insert it, there. You don't have to redo all of that. It'll remember the whole thing. So once you have the interface, I'm going to get rid of this one here. Then you can output it into output it in two different forms. You can either have it generate as C code, or you can have it output it as a declarative XML version of it, where it actually is able to be run with the GUI bits runtime system. So I'm gonna in this case, I'm gonna tell it to under the build, I'm gonna tell it to export the project as GUI bits, and I'm just gonna save it in RAM. As a test. Okay. And now let's just hit escape and get all that out of the way. And that's just hidden, so I can bring it back instantly. There we go. And now it's created an icon here that defaults to AVD bin AVD GUI bits, and with any luck, there you go. You just run it, and it instantly follows the XML description. So now if we bring up the text editor, let's bring this back over to the workbench and drag this in here. We can see what that looks like. Now you'll note that this would normally be highlighted, because XML is one of the text that it does know how to highlight, but it's the highlighting system at this level that only knows when to highlight it based on the file extension, because that's what Rich Editor class does. So if I was to take this and rename it, let's just copy it. Copy. Okay. And then I renamed this one to test.xml. Oops, I missed the dot. And then if we threw that version in there, now you can see that it picked up the highlighting. So this is written as both an XML description of it, which is associated with the icon, which will run the AVD GUI bits to actually run the program. And this is the live version of the program, but it's not connected with any actions to anything at this point. But it does have some automatic features that are built in, creating an about window. It sets itself up as a commodity. It can be hidden or iconified or quit through the menu on there. So those are all just defaults that it picked up without having any of that stuff defined. But you will be able to define all the different stuff for it. So, like I said, this isn't a description of exactly what you asked it to put into the window. Now, so this is the runtime part of it. You will be able to take and add actions for an application intended to be exported as GUI bits, so that you can tie the buttons to take and kick off like AREX or even Python or other like a just command line tool stuff. And also there's coming on here is a implementation. It's an AVD script, which is my own language to enable you to take and reference the different objects and kind of interconnect things, add some basic logic that will be, if you output it as C, it translates it into C and compiles it into the binary. And if you output it as for GUI bits, then it's in the description code and it's interpreted to take and do the same action. So you'll be able to do a lot of application work as just a simple wrapper without having to take and compile it into C code or whatever. Now, if I wanted to output the same thing, let me bring back to GUI bits. Okay, or the editor. All right. But this is the GUI bits version. This is the editing version. If I wanted to output this as C, I would need to have a project target for it first. Now you can, from here you'll be able to take and create a new C template project, for example, and then select a path. I'm going to put this in RAM and install it there and there. Now in RAM, as we could see from our panel, volumes, RAM disk, there's a new project. Now, one thing that this project one is missing is there should be a corresponding XML file. It's got the icon, but it doesn't have the file. And it's very simple to change it, because actually what that loader actually did is it unpacked an LHA of all of the sources. And so if we look at the source layout, it has the main program. There we go. This is the main, and this particular template project is set up to be to have multiple different targets. So it has kind of an abstraction to it, separating things into common code layer and then operating system specific code. So when you get down into source, at the source layer here, the top one, so everything under common is common to every version of the software. And then when you go under, sorry, go back to parent here. This one, the only one it has in by default is Amiga OS 4. You go under Amiga OS 4, this is really where the heart of the whole thing is built. The include files for the headers and the source. And again, this is the operating system main top layer, and then supporting functions for that layer, and the whole thing. So in this particular case, let's see if this works. We can pick that as a target. So we've got this guy, and we want to generate it as a C program. So I will go to build, and I'll say generate C source 2. Because I don't have that project loaded in, so I want to tell it to go to a different project. And I'll just go right to the root of that folder and I say, okay, generate C source here. And I just want to take, and actually I'm done. I don't want to build it from here, mainly because I don't think it's connected anymore. So let's see what it did. There we go. And so now, when I told it to generate it, it took like this file, the .back file, and here was the original code for a basic layout from the template. We can see in here. Yeah, there we go. there's the code to produce like test button 1, test button 2, and click me to quit. There's just 3 buttons in the window. That's what it was when you just installed the basic template. So it had something. And now this is what it is it generated, there's your get file and your slider, button, and it's a whole different layout. And this should be compilable, so we should be able to go right into RAM. Now hopefully this isn't too old of a template. I do have a new one. And we go into, I don't need CD. We go into OS4, we go into make, and there's the make file. Okay, and then we build it. And as you can see, I mean, taking and working with the projects and outputting it to GUI bits is like instantaneous, and you could run it immediately. With actually compiling it into a closed binary, it takes a little while. So even if you don't intend to use output your project as an interpreted script for GUI bits, it still can be quite useful to just keep prototyping, get it all thrown together the way you want, and then you can generate it as a C source. So here it's built all of the objects for the whole software, everything it needed, including the main binary, and I can run AVD template. And there's our C version. It wasn't given the same defaults properties, so it just went to being as small as possible on there. But this is again, there's nothing connected on here at all. So so that's basically it as far as just a quick glance at the GUI Builder. Let this thing quit. Yeah, I don't know. It might have. So as you can see, interface design is very fast. There's going to be some other really nice features in here. One of the things that's very difficult to do is create your own custom Boopsie classes. It's once you understand how to do it, it's not a huge challenge, but it is definitely a learning curve to be able to set up all of the code, and and you've got to have lay it out as an interface. It has to dispatcher. It has to take and follow certain functions, certain methods that are absolutely needed, and then you can extend it to different methods. I mean, there's a lot involved in taking and doing it. So that is one of the big things with AVD, as well as that it's going to allow you to create those complicated things, Boopsie classes, libraries, devices, based off of already working models. So it'll give you as much of the code as it can for it. Now for the GUI Builder part of it, as you can see what we did with modules, and there we go, just insert stuff like that. If we wanted to take this piece of garbage interface and wrap it up into its own Boopsie class, so that's a Boopsie class that inherits and uses other Boopsie class components in it as a complete whole. And then you can just bring in an instance of that and just say, give me one of those, give me one of those, give me one of those. And that's going to be possible as well. So you'll be able to just throw an interface together, and very much like the modules listing here, which is basically just a cutout section of the XML being saved aside and then brought in, to wherever you need it to be. In a similar fashion, you'll be able to just throw components together and say, generate this as its own Boopsie class, either as a private class, which you can compile in, and it just does a make class and destroys itself all privately within your closed code, or as an actual public class and with a complete shared library built around it. So I think that's pretty much all I wanted to take and do, is kind of give you an update on where things were. The text editor is definitely getting to the point where it's very usable, and the very next things I'm going to be doing is starting to interconnect it. So obviously, big things, being able to say, what does this button do? Like right-click on it as a possible. And I can see I've got some things that are in here already. And just be able to edit every single property of that button. Change all of its tags and everything like that, and define its action. So when you say I want to assign an action to that, it's going to bring up the text editor and allow you to take and edit it. Right now, with this template concept, if we wanted to we wanted to actually give some action to what this interface is, then we would go right into like process events, where it will have already laid out right here, object by object, a basic thing for each one of them. So you could right now generate the interface, save it, generate it out to your C source, and then go right into your C source and start filling in the rest of the code bits. Largely right off of here. This is where everything would, process events. This is where everything would handle the events coming in. The user hits the button, it goes to here. And so you can put some code inline if it's simple for stuff, or you could just take and, create your own functions and call out your own functions, everything like that. But the end goal is that you'll just have to, when you take, okay, I want to create an action for this button, it'll automatically open up the text editor and give you an area where you are defining what that button does. And then you don't really need to know where it's going to end up. So you define all of your code pieces, it saves it all into the XML, and then it generates it all into C source, from XML descriptions to C source, or from XML descriptions, just interpreted. And also one of the other big changes that is coming on here is that right now what I did is I unpacked a statically written application that the Gui Builder and AVD knew how to modify. In the future, very near future, that system will be replaced where you won't have a pre-written static template. Instead of that, it's going to be replaced with code generation engines that will just generate 100% of the code for you, and that's going to enable it to really tailor what you want. I mean, this thing is set up for multiple, to support builds in multiple different operating systems, and so it's got a lot of a layered approach. It's set up to expect to manage multiple windows, and if your project had one window, one target, then a lot of that code can just be streamlined to where it just produces exactly what you want. And so at the end of the day, that's exactly where AVD is going. It's going to modular code generation systems, which will be open. So you'll be able to, you'll see what the XML description is for it. And if you wanted to write a code generator that took that XML layout, just described all the code, and generated out as, straight into Arex or Python or C++ or whatever you wanted to do. I mean, the main targets here are going to be for outputting it just for C, and of course leaving it in XML for the interpreter. Of course, one of the other parts of that design change is because parts of AVD itself are going to go multi-platform, because we need to support a lot more developers out there, and there are a lot more developers that have different, they have Windows machines, Linux machines, Mac machines, whatever else, and they do their primary editing on that, and they do their primary stuff on that. So if we can move some of these pieces, like the code generation engine, is going to be written entirely in ANSI standard C, no Amiga specific calls, and because it doesn't need them, it's just command line. It's file in, files out. So it will be I'll have it built on any platform that it needs to run on, and that'll make up part of plug-in systems for very popular IDEs, Qt, probably Visual Studio, maybe Eclipse, that kind of thing. But that's all part of the future path of it. But the primary goal, first and foremost, is to get a complete professional, rapid application development system native to Amiga OS. You can do everything on Amiga OS, but it's not going to leave out the reality that we don't have as many of these machines as we'd like, and people really need to be able to develop. We want to open up the world, so we need to bring this stuff to them, meet them halfway at least. So.
When you generate a C,
yeah.
the C code executable, will it then be executable on other platforms?
Not from the whole point of the system is still to build code for Amiga OS 4. So even though you'll have tools that run on like Windows or Linux or Mac that help you do that, the generation of the code would be cross-compiled for the binary. Now the only exception to that is that it is the GUI bits interpreter. That is going to go multi-platform as well. And so in that case, if your target is throw an interface together and glue code is either the AVD script or maybe that plus Python, then absolutely. You can be able to run it and it'll look native because what GUI bits really is a native application for the target OS that doesn't know what its interface is yet. And it doesn't know what it's supposed to do yet. And it reads that from the declarative description, in this case in XML, and generates it on the fly. So I have the commercial license. I've invested for another much larger project into the Qt framework, which allows me to develop cross-platform Windows, Linux, Mac. And so I will be writing stuff for Qt as a GUI bits version of Qt and compiling it for different targets, and that'll give you a native version. So, because there are a lot of things where I would love to be able to take, throw a little application together, and I want it to be able to run here, 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 and here. So from an interpreted standpoint, yes. Now, if you use AVD and with different code generations, if you different code generator modules, then yes. I mean, you could take and generate it to code that was, let's say for a Qt target instead, and then you could compile it. You'd have to cross-compile it natively on Amiga OS, but it would probably be faster to natively compile it on whatever your native target is. But you could in theory completely use AVD to write code that will go cross-platform. Of course you can do that with any basic text editor. If you know the language. The tricky bit is how do I create a graphical interface and tie it together and then go multi-platform with it. Because everybody's different. But at least with like the Qt framework, which is a big investment. I mean, I've got I put $10,000 into that licensing to give me the ability to produce, that kind of output. So, on a commercial basis without restriction. And so it's difficult to find a common target, that you can go across with it, get a consistent graphical interface across different platforms, and Qt is one of those options, and so yeah, there's a lot of potential. So, any other questions? Otherwise, I'm just going to kind of wrap it up there.
How far along are you in getting the scriptability into GUI bits?
I have a few other things I've got to finish connecting first before I can really target it. So as far as like the first level of the AVD script thing connecting into GUI bits is kind of two things. One is the first one that's going to come online is, okay, I want an action for a button. What kind of action? AREX, and then just run an AREX program or put a little inline AREX. That'll come online very quickly. The second part of it is kind of more like a macro language for changing the properties. Like, oh crap, I just went to the one. That is a known bug. Let me reboot that. Yes, almost. My multi-file system. If I found just recently that if I double click on an existing file, then it locks up instead of going to it. It's weird. I have to track it down exactly what it's doing. But anyway, the first part of the AVD script is to simplify object access. So every single one of those GUI components is an object, and every one of those objects has properties. Some of those properties can be get, some of them can be set. With AVD, some things can be set that normally can't be set for the code, because some objects have property changes that are so big to change the way that they work that they can only be done if the entire gadget is recreated. So normally when a gadget is created, you can use get set ars, set at ars, get at ars, and you can get stuff from it, manipulate, change stuff with it, but only within the scope that it's allowed within the Boopsie class on a per class basis. But because AVD is extending that for you, it can go as far as actually saying, oh, you want to change a property that requires recreating the gadget? It'll recreate the gadget. And it'll recreate it and swap it out, and you won't even see it. If it physically changes the layout, you'll notice it. But otherwise, if it's a property that can't be changed but doesn't change the visual look, you won't even see it do it, because it'll actually do it behind the scenes and swap it out and the refresh. So it will be a more powerful version of getting and setting attributes within the classes, because it can literally let you recreate it if necessary on the fly. But primarily, it's a simplified language of being able to say, just give me that property, that value. So that's a slider, and you want to connect a slider value, current position value, to a string input or whatever like that. Of course, you'll be able to do interconnects like that, but describe them in AVD. But there's a lot of things like, let's say, for example, you wanted to create an interface that was a front end for launching an existing command line program. So like a remote desktop, or maybe Blender or something, something like that. So you've got you want to create an interface which has all the options that you normally would have to know all the command line options to give it, and you create a graphical interface that represents all of those options. And then you click selections, check for switches, and you put in, get file for picking a path. And so now you've got that interface, and it has all of those different properties to it. And that's where it comes into, it's like, okay, now what do I do? I need an action button. The action button is going to do what? Well, it's got to get all of those property states from all of those gadgets and construct the command line with all the proper switches. And that's where the first level of AVD script comes in. So you can just simply say, okay, if this checkbox is checked, then that means I'm going to add -t to the string that I'm building, and so you build up so you can pull all the properties from it very easily, and it'll be able to do that in an interpreted manner. The next level of it is it'll actually add a little bit of logic code to it. I don't know if I'll actually take it to the point where it'll be like, more or less a full interpreted C. I think it's going to be more like a, just kind of a macro language that you're using, that it knows how to either interpret or translate. We'll see how it goes, but yeah. So, like I said, tying an action to kick off a script to shell an AREX, something like that within the GUI bits runtime, that's going to come online very quickly. It's going to be one of the first things I actually do, connecting. Now that the text editor is pretty much on its feet. I can now start interconnecting the different pieces, so that it'll open up the editor and let you change let you put in some stuff, and then it'll save it into the project file and the whole thing. So.
Did you save the, so you get the GUI bits working with AREX?
Yeah.
And you have a button, you want to click the button, and it goes off and checks the setting of 3 other things within the GUI bits interface, and it goes off and does something. Would all that script be written into the XML file?
Yes, it would.
So it's all in one file?
Yeah.
that GUI bits from?
It's actually your choice. It would favor keeping it all in the XML file, which means you can just drag and drop an icon around, copy it, whatever you want to do. Very easy deliverable. But if you wanted to, kick off something much larger, so you've got a 10,000 line AREX script, then you just put a reference into it. But you could embed it if you wanted to. If you want 10,000 lines of AREX code in the XML, then sure. So you'll have the choice with that. You'll also be able to embed images. I mean, it'll put XML blobs of binary stuff in there. But I mean, that's not with the open version. And I should really talk about that too, because everything I've been showing is AVD. But there is, of course, the sister project to that, which is free AVD. Now, free AVD will let you create applications, and definitely, with GUI bits, it'll save it out in XML. But it's going to remain open, right? With AVD, you'll have some options with your interpreted output. So you could still take and say, I want to save it as GUI bits, but you don't have to actually say that, leave it open. You could say, just write it out as XML, but compress it and encrypt it, for me, so that it's still a text deliverable, but now it's just a big, bin hex, blob, and that's what it loads in, and it uncompresses it and then decrypts it based on your license key, and takes and still does the same thing. So you'll be able to deliver a closed script version, or you can leave it open. That's your other options. But free AVD will only let you do an open version, and it'll also automatically include help. Under the help, you'll have a dialogue on there, and it's always going to say this was produced with free AVD, and it's a free software, and if somebody charges you something for it, contact me, because they're not supposed to. But with free AVD, though, I don't restrict a license like there's some other licensing, like with Qt, for example. If you intend to create a commercial project with Qt, you're not supposed to use the open source version to get it done and then buy the commercial license. You're supposed to buy the commercial license up front. And of course, the big thing they push now is the big subscription model. So you're supposed to start paying immediately. AVD is not like that. If you want to hack something out with free AVD and really get it to the point where it's like, this is cool, people are asking me for it, they're willing to pay some money, then you buy the commercial version. Now you've got the ability to do freeware, shareware, commercial, whatever you want to do. So, anything else? I think this Mac might have folded up, by the way. Can't rely on a Mac.
You can rely on it more than a PC.
Well, that's true. Yeah. And I do. So, what time is it?
It is 11:13.
Well, there you go.
They come in with the menus here in a minute or so.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to leave the lights on for anyone else, because I thought that the lights were causing the glare when it was actually the light from the river. So yeah, temporarily turn the river on.
We might have to re-record some of this here, Aaron. I don't know how much of it got before it folded.
Oh. What's that?
I say we might have to re-record some of the stuff
Yeah,
because
I
I
figured a way we
don't
could do that.
know. I mean, it had like 32 minutes when it was clicking along when I did it, but now it doesn't do anything.
Oh, it might be fine.
Oh, it might have just locked out.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's still going.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Well,
you're
good.
good. So we can stop it
You
here,
can stop
right?
it here, yeah.
Okay.